Welcome to Home for Ambition. I'm John Colliker, CEO and co-founder of Leland. I'm one of the co-hosts. As a reminder, this is a weekly show for ambitious people that are trying to stay ahead as work, learning, and opportunity are rewritten because of AI. And each week we break down a few of the biggest ideas shaping this new AI-driven world. What's real, what's overhyped, and most importantly, what do we do about it? So with that, Mike and Jake, how are we doing?
Good. Actually, a little sick. So if I sound a little off, I'm sure the listeners will notice. But hey, AI, if it can be sick for me in the future, that's
That's one of the problems with people right there is they get sick. If there's an AI, actually, sometimes Claude can get a little sick. So you have that going for you.
Claude has its off days for sure.
All right. Well, we got a packed agenda. I want to kick it off with a topic that we've seen come up in the chat a few times and is something that we think about all the time, which is you have all this hype, you have all these people talking about AI applications and, bragging about what they built or what they've done or their new workflow, the new thing they set up on OpenClaw, the new automation they built. But I want to hear from you guys. What are the actual valuable implementations of AI within companies today? And within that, which roles do you see kind of being affected the most so far?
Yeah, so I did some research on this topic before the call, and last year McKinsey released this study about AI adoption in businesses, and the conclusion was only 39% of companies have said that it's made any impact on EBITDA, and the majority of that 39% said that it's had less than 5% impact. The majority of businesses have seen essentially no impact or very small impact because of AI. I would say that in the past 4 months, there's like real practical applications, especially with like Claude Opus 4.6, Sonnet 4.6, like some of these newer models are just so good at task completion that you're starting to see some of the best real applications of AI. I have a friend who their company was built on a bunch of VAs, and they've basically been able to replace most of them with OpenClaw. And that's like not revenue impacting, but profit impacting or cost efficiency.
To interrupt though, like I think that's a really interesting measure of effectiveness is just EBITDA impact or revenue impact. And I think there are a lot of companies that would say, to your point, in the last 4 months, there has been an impact, but they might not, they'd say AI has impacted my company, but they might not say AI has impacted my revenue or my EBITDA, which is interesting. Sorry, continue your thought.
Yeah. And then the last area, and this is, I think, the core of what you were saying, which is specifically Anthropic, but I think in response to Anthropic, all of the LLMs have decided that software development is like the golden target of what we want to start with. And so all of the best AI applications are in the software development side. And I think that's because if you can do it right, there's a world where the LLMs improve themselves and there's like this recursive learning pattern. And so like Jake can speak to this much better than I can, but I think that is where you're seeing like the real impact. And product development is much slower in driving revenue or EBITDA results. And so I imagine that over the next 12 months, that number will drastically increase of companies that are actually reporting impact because of AI.
Yeah, I think it's obvious the leverage it's added to software engineers right now. And I'm not sure there's been a lot of like actual software engineers replaced. I think there's so much latent demand for code and for software that currently engineering are actually seeing a little bit of an upspike in hiring in positions because the value you get from a good software engineer is now more than it's ever been. But I think the most interesting thing that it's changed is it's democratized technical power. The things that in the past had to be a software engineer no longer have to be a software engineer. In fact, even at Leland here, we've got everyone in the terminal or shipping code or creating landing pages and generating things that in the past were purely software engineers. And then we have a bunch of people and people everywhere that are learning to leverage these tools to do sophisticated automations. And so it's like democratizing technical ability, which is really cool. I think the other three places that I've seen the biggest impact is one at personalization. It's not really a job, but it's a common task, which is AI is pretty good at faking a personalization So taking something and trying to customize it to a specific individual or company or outcome. And it seems to be quite effective at doing that very quickly. And I don't know, I guess you could debate me on effective. It's not sometimes too hard to spell out if it's from a human or not.
Yeah. Do you think there's like going to just be a desensitization of people responding to personalized things? Like when I get a personalized email, I almost always assume that it was AI.
Yeah, I don't think anything reals anymore. And if I hadn't met you two in person, I'd be questioning that as well. But no, I think personalization, I have outreach, they're kind of connected because a lot of effective outreach is being personalized. But I think AI is a huge lever for both of those things, which is mass outreach in ways that is more personalized than ever before. And I think there is some short-term spike and advantage in alpha for people that are doing that because it's new. But basically every new sales technique, once it plays out universally, loses its effectiveness. So yeah, I think it might go down in the future, but I have no doubt that it's more successful than just cold blanket emails right now.
Yeah, I think as I was reflecting on this question, I think that the answer is that jobs or tasks that have confined context windows are the ones that are being affected the most. So obviously software engineering, everything you do is not everything you do. A lot of what you do is contained in your, on your computer, the code you're writing, and it's tracked and it's easy to replicate that because you have, you're able to, even at the PR level, like I'm actually submitting the specific changes I'm making to the code base, right? It doesn't actually track context that maybe between engineers debating an idea or a direction and why they went with one or the other, which is actually probably really important. Now, over time, you still might learn over time, like why did it go, or why did it go with this, or that this approach was bad and got changed later or whatever. So it's still learning. But software engineering is a very contained system. In the same way that you're talking about with outreach, right? If I'm emailing a bunch of people, it's all confined to like a system that can be tracked, and that's context that's sort of managed in a specific way. I think jobs that have less of that, like maybe an interaction where we're debating a product idea. Now we can record that, and we should, right? I think every company is scrambling to figure out, how do I get all the context from all the conversations happening in Slack, in Notion, in Google Docs, or in person, and organize that in a productive way. Sales teams are also scrambling to figure out, how do I record all my sales calls so I can get insights from them? So everyone's trying to sort of figure out, how do you manage context? It's something that we need to figure out as a company, because the more context you have that's contained, the easier it is for you to train something on it and then for it to impact it and replicate it. Now, of course, as it connects to the physical world, then that's where things break down.
I have one other spot that's kind of an interesting physical world connection where I think it's super effective. And there's some startups, even some companies local to us that are doing a huge amount of revenue here by targeting this. And I think this is maybe my best benefit. I actually had a water leak in my house this week, and it got through the ceiling and created a large problem. And it relates to this company because they're selling to basically small independent contractors and people with no teams. People that are historically, their ability to answer the phone is what limits the amount of business they can have. And if you are my plumber trying to fix my leak, you can't answer the phone while you're in the what is it? Working on the plumbing. And so I think AI agents are super effective for these kind of organizations, that they add basically an availability and or responsiveness layer that these people were either not capable of or not excellent at. And I think that's transforming a lot of business for these people. And maybe this is another short-term spike and then everyone has it. And so then it's a different playing field. But I went with the first plumber who answered the phone. And I don't know if it was a human or not, but someone answered the phone and scheduled it. And that was the person I went with business with. And I think that's a huge opportunity if you need responsiveness or availability.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I also think that, a lot of the knowledge work gains, to your point, are still in this world of where do I get alpha, or that there is alpha in abundance, because not everyone has managed their context effectively or set up this system or built the agents that do their job and has, navigated it's the whole reason why, as we launched this AI builder program, it's grown so fast, because everyone's realizing, wow, well, number one, if I go and become that person, I become immensely valuable because I'm doing the job of 15 people. And number two, if I don't do it in 6 months, I may not have a job. And so I think that like urgency is super important. One other thing I wanted to show, and I'll pull this up on my screen. So Jake, you made the comment that software engineering jobs were up, which is true, but it's also really important to understand the context, right? So this is a post that shows the Indeed job postings overall, which you can kind of see is sort of trending down. And then you see this jump in software engineering postings, specifically kind of around November. Well, it's kind of started over the summer and then sort of continued into January. And I agree with you that I think right now, while there are lots of agents or Claude Code can produce a lot of code, there is so much latent demand for code that you're going to get both more software engineers and more code written by non-technical people. And I don't think they're necessarily at odds. Now, I think it's also important to look at another chart, which is to put that jump in context. And you can see overall job postings on Indeed over a more of a 6-year period that are sort of flat to down over time. You get this COVID spike and the sort of zero interest rate phenomenon era. Look how many, software engineering jobs and the growth there falls off a cliff. And then, yes, it did jump up, but relative to kind of where we were during COVID, it's still pretty small. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily like software engineering jobs are at risk, but I do think it's puts in context that we're still hurting from the ZERP era, right? There was a lot of people that were over. There was a lot of overhiring that happened, and I think that there's probably still a lot of these layoffs that are being attributed to AI because it's the perfect excuse, and the market seems to like that excuse because it sort of makes people feel like you're tech forward. But the reality is that a lot of these companies did overhire, and they're still hurting for it. I think it's encouraging to see that there is still a little bit of a jump for software engineers, but I think it's important to see the context too.
I think free money from the government's a hell of a drug for tech companies. Let's bring it back. It was a fun ride outside of the pandemic and people dying, and now the unwinding of it's been painful. Yeah, agreed. I actually kind of want to transition into a topic I had for today.
No, I'd love that.
It's kind of related. I'm going to share this LinkedIn post. It's got I'm not saying I agree with all the content or how it was written. It's not even the most quality, but it is kind of going viral a bit. And it's kind of aligned with this. And it's like, for now, there are only 4 jobs. And it kind of breaks these down into 4 main categories of stuff. And I wanted to just share it and see if you guys had some thoughts on it. And it's written in a very, certain tone, right? But the first thing it's saying is, you can be part of the slop canon, or basically the product engineering, development, vibe coder, people that are shipping product. And these are not just restricted anymore to product engineering rules, but basically commercial and product minded people still have a home in the future of AI proliferation. And then there's this whole other layer that exists now, which I think maybe will be rising in prominence, which is security, site reliability is what SRE stands for, and infrastructure, the things that keep these sites up and running and measured and learning from them. It's not too difficult for anyone to throw out anything in a slop canon. It's a little more difficult to keep it up with any number of nines, as they use in this industry. It's 99.99% uptime is what you used to want. And now a lot of people that are shipping a lot of code are seeing much less uptime than that, which means maybe there's a value play on the people that can keep your data and company safe and up and working. The third bucket is one that I'm an expert on as a hot person myself. They're framing here are the people type stuff is what I'm seeing, sales, people, customer experience, people that are focused on making good user experiences for humans internally and externally. And that pretty much aligned, I think, with some of the things we've said on our last podcasts around staying human focused. And then the last one is just kind of the grown up, which is everyone needs an adult in the room, someone to hold stuff accountable, do the obvious things, kind of the serious individual. And I've always wanted to be a grown up. I'm not sure I've ever made it there. Anyways, what do you guys think? This is an interesting thing. It's got a couple hundred shares and comments and likes and went a bit viral on LinkedIn. Wanted to see if you guys agreed with the buckets or what you were thinking about it.
I think there's veins of truth to this, of especially the security, SRE, infrastructure. You're totally right that has become significantly more important. I might argue that branding falls into that of like, if I were starting a company today and growing it, I might still want like a really creative branding person. You could maybe fit that person into the hot people bucket of like creating a good experience that people want to associate with. And then I actually think they're totally right about the hot people perspective. Like, this idea of companies are only going to be like solopreneurs that are building things are like missing this very important like human connection, relationship building, and creating a brand that people want to associate with. Grownups is interesting because I wonder how important that's going to be based on the size of companies. Like, essentially, the more employees you have, the more need you have for grownups. But if companies can get away with being smaller, then I think your need for that decreases. So you might only have like one or two grownups. Maybe that grownup falls into one of the other buckets and it's more of like a shared responsibility. Overall, I think there's like kind of a vein of truth to a lot of this.
Yeah, so I always appreciate people trying to simplify the world because I think you have to, well, yeah, I appreciate the attempt. I think you also have to be, Alfred Lin wrote a post about this today, which I loved, just to be very afraid of simple narratives. Simple narratives are attractive. They work for our small minds. And the reality is like most of the world is actually pretty messy, and the ambiguity is where the reality usually falls. I think this is slop. I think this is wrong. I think he's basically simplifying every existing job pre-AI to 4 buckets, which, okay, people that build product, people that sell product, people that make your company secure, and all the operations and finance people in between. I don't think that's necessarily new. Those things already existed. He just happens to be ignoring the most important bucket, which is distribution, which is probably the only thing that's going to matter in a world where we haven't.
But isn't that hot people? Like, he's saying hot people, like sales fit into hot people.
Sure. But sales isn't just distribution, right? Sales, like, it's part of distribution, I guess, if you said outbound sales. But a lot of hot people, what he's talking about is like people that once you land on your product or engage with your company, they have this friendly face, good looking face, whatever, uses the word present an easy UX to the world and are pleasant to be around. That is not growth. Like, growth are savages who get your company and product around the world quickly in a viral way. And there's no more important time ever than right now for that, because turns out every single person on planet Earth can produce a ton of code. And I think there's a lot of people that can sell when someone comes to your company, who can go find the next person, who can go build the next viral social strategy or whatever it is, the next outbound motion, or importantly, who can build a brand, which is probably going to matter even more when I have like 17 different options of the same, pick your software. I'm going to look for something that I can trust, and maybe the hot person helps with that. But I think I don't think he's capturing marketing and growth and distribution well enough in this simplification, which mattered before and matters even more now. So I think he basically just tried to simplify the world into what is already. Now, I think maybe the more profound piece is like bucket number 1 combines product, engineering, and design into the same person or the same job. And I think that's like, there's truth to that. I don't think that's true yet. Like, we still find value in someone that can like interact with the complexities of code, even if we can produce it at a high rate, or someone that can know what good design looks like and build a component system that can work with our AI, and a product person who can decide what we build, which is super important when we can build a lot, right? And so I actually don't think they're the same job. I don't think many companies, I think they're compressing for sure, but they're not there yet. And so I think it oversimplifies and is utterly wrong.
Yeah, to me, the big takeaway here is, for example, take a law firm. You have today like the lawyers who are actually providing the legal service, and then you have like the staff that are supporting them. So that's the legal assistants, the paralegals, and then you have like this marketing distribution arm. And then you have like managing directors or partners who would kind of be like the grownups in this scenario. And basically the point he is making is the back office maintenance is going to disappear. And what you'll be seeing are the lawyers. You'll still have a managing partner and you'll still have marketing, but you would not have legal assistants. And I think that is where the truth lives. There is that shrinkage of those jobs. Or like to Jake's point, if this is a plumbing firm, like you're still having the plumber who's providing the service, but you might not have the receptionist. And so I think there is truth there. you're right.
There's no support staff, is what you're saying, and
Exactly.
that job has gone away. So why not just publish a post that says support staff wrote? It's gone, right? Like, I don't know.
Maybe
It just doesn't feel that revolutionary. There's a really good comment in the chat that said small businesses would now need people who are jack of all trades, able to do most tasks, backed by some or other AI tool. I think that's true. And I think that kind of begs the question, are those the grown-ups? Like, is it basically that grown-ups or maybe like orchestrators? I think the way that he's defining grown-ups in Hunter's post is more of the like grown-up, like legal and finance, not like, what if you have a product-driven CEO, COO, whatever, head of product, head of engineering, who can do some of the grown-up stuff or can outsource it and can be hot and can have agents that handle all the security and infrastructure. Frankly, I think security infrastructure is probably really important today. That feels like stuff that should go away, like should be pretty easy for agents to do well at some point. Maybe not. Maybe agents will get better at hacking and seeing better agents that are good at security. Certainly is a problem now, considering all the code leaks that we've had in the last few days. So it's topical.
Yeah, if you man, I know we got to wrap this topic here soon, but on that exact thing, there was a leakage and rumors of Claude's new model that was referenced on their blog, which is maybe a cool way to pump their valuation even more without shipping anything. I don't know. But if it's real, the thought is popular is that Claude's next model, Mythos, is so strong that they aren't releasing it because they're giving it to security companies to try and get security providers caught up before they give it to the world. And so it might just be an arms race in security providers. My last comment, I think you're right about the growth part of this. And I think the restraint in the slop cannon is going to be a big deal, getting it on brand, and then growth is just a completely missing category here. My last question, when it comes to grownups, Mike, you took like the law firm angle, but don't you feel like legal seems to be something that almost everyone believes is maybe one of the most at risk like industries or sectors, because it's just interpreting words, which is what LLMs are like super good at. And so it's like, do you need a grown up in the room when it comes to legal stuff? Or is that just like in the future, is that just like an agent that watches your Slack or channels and or joins your Zoom meetings and it just like stops you from doing stupid stuff on demand? Like we had one here, maybe it would have stopped me from using the hot people term, it'd be like legal bot says, Jake, respect people and hire.
So I think you need a neck to choke, right? Or throat to choke. Like you need someone to ultimately be held accountable. And I think legal has always played that role. But I totally agree with you that you need a whole lot less of it, right? Like I think there's a YC startup that's doing legal documents for like, a tenth of the price. And like, I don't know how that's not the future, right? You still need someone that reviews it. You still need someone to bless it, but they don't need to write every word anymore. And like, they better not be, right? There's probably some concerns considering there were some hallucinations that were inventing cases that were being referenced in some of the legal work. And so you got to make sure it's airtight. You need someone to be able to review it. But I'd be a little nervous about like fully killing legal, but they better be cheap. And I would expect some like major disruption in terms of law firm pricing, or they charge even more, but they have to be way more efficient. And so you're still paying for high quality legal counsel, but like instead of taking 2 weeks on something, it should take them an hour or two. That would be my perspective.
Great. This is a great topic, Jake. Final point of debate for today's episode. This started off as I guess this debate has been going on for 3 years, but recently on X, it's been especially feisty.
We're going to solve it today, Mike. We're going to solve it right now.
Right now, once and for all. Is AI making us dumber? And I think there's interesting perspectives here. I would say on average, most people are saying yes. But then if you ask them, well, are you dumber today than you were 2 years ago? They say no. And so like, why is that difference? And then there's also the contrast of like HBS did a study last year where they said people who used AI were like 40% better at doing tasks. And so if they maybe are dumber in specific areas, but with the added, use of AI are net smarter or more effective, does that even matter that they are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Does intelligence ever even matter anymore? I mean, I think like the word dumb is also hard to like, you kind of have to deconstruct what that even means, right? Ignorant, definitely, right? Like how many of us know how to make our iPhones? like a few thousand people on the planet know how to make one, but we use it every day. So it's been a long time since it's been a requirement to know how the underlying technology. I don't know how electricity like really works. Like my house went out, if my power went out, I would not be able to fix it, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess to define it, MIT released a study a couple of years ago, which showed power users of ChatGPT showed like less neuroactivity in their brain. Like there are fewer neurons being fired in their brain because they are repeatedly using AI.
Yeah. I mean, I feel it in myself, not necessarily being dumber, but outsourcing my thinking for sure, right? Like how could you not, right? Is anyone saying, okay, I could sit down and build this 5-page strategy doc completely on my own, which would require a lot of thought and energy. I would be tired after. Or I can now debate it with, this highly intelligent being. Of course, it's still exerting my own, because I still have to like critique it, and I'm still like putting my own information in. But like the act of like getting something started, right? Overcoming writer's block, some of these other things that like we used to have to just get our minds going for, you don't have to. Like it kind of it jumpstarts you. So I don't know. It's hard to say like I am dumber now. I don't know if anyone really wants to like acknowledge that. But do I outsource more thinking than I used to? Definitely.
Yeah, because Jake, I would love to hear your perspective, but maybe to respond to that, in some ways, I actually feel like I am smarter or way better because of AI. For example, we run a lot of A/B tests, and it has been a superpower for me. There were so many things I didn't know that I didn't know, and having AI play the role of a statistician who can look at it and tell me things like, you're seeing a lot of variance in this metric because you haven't accounted for outliers. Here's best practices and things that you should be doing different. And now I know what good looks like. I'm better able to like dissect that data. Like in some ways, I am a way better product manager because of AI.
For sure but that's not what it's saying, right?
I might be a dumber human that is a better PM.
Yeah, like productive for sure, right? I think it's also the end state, right? What's the end state of this? Do you think you're going to continue to ask ChatGPT or Claude the intricacies of statistics in order to understand? No, right? Like maybe for the next like few months, but it's going to start doing it for you way better than you would ever do. So I have a hard time believing that the end state of this is actually, well, I'm going to continue to ask it to explain its reasoning every time it tells me, people aren't going to do that. People are lazy. I don't know. Jake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I got a lot of them. Wow, it's hard to direct it. It's hard for me to grapple with this world where I'm filled with microplastics destroying my body, and now I've got AI eating my neurons in my brain. It's tough out there, everyone. Stay safe. I haven't known you all for too long. What's the time span we're judging dumber over? Is it year over year or 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, you could say November 2022 is where it starts, right? That was when it was
It
released.
definitely hasn't. I don't think it's made people dumber yet.
Yeah, it's hard to, because there's so many people, there's so many usages and stuff. Like I think it is definitely making people more informed, and I think it's definitely making some people more productive. Is it helping people master concepts? I don't think so. And especially if you offload some of the hard, like there was a popular article about writing that was like, you got to write your own stuff to really master your own argument and your understanding. And if like you just let ChatGPT spit out a document for you, like, oh, I agree with that, it's not going to be the same level of mastery as if you created it yourself, which is something I think I believe in. It's hard to know. And so it's like, I think that there is the danger of people losing true mastery by offloading some of the most difficult thinking. And I think that will likely lead to you being not as good of a thinker over time. If you let AI do your logic and you don't do your logic, I think you probably get dumber, but your output stays the same. I also think there's an interesting point that's been popular for a while around what LLMs are, which is just like taking every word that was ever written by a human and like trying to categorize them and parse them and then like predict the next word that should come after something. And there is a certain amount of like, on a broad model, that's going to yield a fairly average result at times. And depending on your data set, maybe you've trained it on above average data. So your average result on above average data is better than what the average person can get. But I think by the nature of it, there's a lot of humans that are using this that are just the model's going to be smarter than them every single time on everything they ever do. And their net result is going to be to not master it, not think. And they're just going to remain below average and not level up. I don't know.
Let me ask you the question on this, Jake, and Mike. I saw something today that said there were some reports of ChatGPT coming with a strong opinion for, someone that came to them with a problem. ChatGPT responded and maybe disagreed with them, which is good. It's not only validating, even though it does validate a lot. And then the person kind of pushed back, and then ChatGPT almost like doubled down erroneously, like it was wrong, but it just like doubled down, and then it convinced the person that they were wrong. Have you been tricked by ChatGPT yet?
I'm sure I have. I don't. Well, in coding, it's easy to see because I've kind of have a mastery over some of the space it's working in. So it's easy to see when it's really wrong. In more like real world or research applications, I'm sure I have been, but I'm not entirely sure where.
Mike,
yeah,
what do you think?
Well, yes, for sure this has happened. Well, I was studying for the GRE 3 years ago when the first version of ChatGPT came out, and it was hallucinating all the time and was telling me all kinds of lies that I was believing and needed to go back and unlearn. But even recently, like there have been things where I'm working on a problem and it's telling me certain things are possible or are not possible, doubles down on it because I think it's the expert, especially in more technical problems. I end up making mistakes there. I don't know if I've had it make mistakes on like base facts, or maybe it has made mistakes and I didn't even know enough to question it. And so, like Jake was saying, it's happened and I just don't even know that it's happened.
Yeah. I think, thank the heavens that we had fake news to get us warmed up for this, right? Like, because who has been, have you ever been sent to like some Facebook photo from one of your friends? And first of all, you're like, why are you on Facebook? Second of all, you're like, this is just a straight up lie. How did you not look at this and know immediately that it was like, no, Tom Brady's not going back to college to start, as quarterback for Notre Dame. That is objectively a lie. He's won like 7 Super Bowls. But like, because fake news is a lot easier to decipher. ChatGPT is like your smart friend that spews a bunch of nonsense, but because they're smart, you just like, you don't question it. There's also a lot of experts. There's a lot of people on podcasts, a lot of experts that sound so confident that you just kind of take what they say at face value. And ChatGPT is like that times 10, right? Because it is very smart. It does have this like infinite abundance of knowledge, and it's persuasive. And so, in some ways, it's almost like us getting warmed up with a hallucinating ChatGPT was probably good, because it probably helped us like question it a little bit. But now I'm a little nervous that like it's gotten better. It's starting to reason a little bit better. And now like I see people going down these rabbit holes with it, coming back to me saying, hey, like ChatGPT, I pushed it and it kept going, it's right. And then we go and look at the source and it's like, it's just totally wrong. And they're like baffled, right? It's like, it almost like messes with their trust. Like they've been betrayed by this like, supreme being. And so I don't know. I think it's that scares me a lot.
So wouldn't you play out some of that then and then say overall, like, I think this is to rephrase where I was trying to end. And I think I could read it and you agree, is like, I think AI can make you smarter. I think on average, it will make people dumber, in the sense of like, if people just want someone to follow and they don't have to think and they don't have to do anything, they'll just do what it says. Like that is the easiest way to use AI. And I think that's what most people are going to do because it's the easiest. Therefore, I think on average, it will make more people dumber, but it can make you smarter.
And I mean, you might be right in the sense that like neuroactivity may decline broadly across humans. But I would argue that over the next 5 years, you actually see an increase in better decision making across the board. Because, I mean, to your point, Jake, you have half of the world is below average intelligence. And so if they just said, AI make like every decision for me, and if it goes to the mean, like, it might be way better at thinking or making decisions than some large percentage of the population. And I also, to your point, John, I think hallucinations are going down. Like, in my opinion, AI 5 years from now very rarely hallucinates. It's got really good like checking systems. And so in a world where people fully outsource thinking to AI, that might be good.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah. Good in that it leads to better decisions. I think you could say perhaps we trained AI and then now AI is training us, right? Like I think there's a little bit of that where you say, hey, I am unable to think through this complicated situation and I need to just give you all of the context. And then I need you to break. I mean, this happens to me all the time, right? I probably happens to most people. Like, I'm just going to spew a bunch of stuff into my phone or my computer. I'm going to let AI break it down for me. It helps me think through it myself, helps me focus on what's important, and then leads me to make a better decision. Now, I think I would have probably needed to go about that in a different way. I probably would have needed to write it down. I probably would have needed to talk to a couple friends or family members. Like, we have always made decisions by talking out, writing it out. And so if ChatGPT helps us do that, or AI helps us do that, and that in turn teaches us how to make better decisions, then that's amazing. I think if it's like, AI take the wheel, I worry, one of my favorite books ever is As a Man Thinketh. It talks all about, your thoughts is, how you cultivate your thoughts is who you become. And like someone that hasn't done the work to become that person, to have those thoughts, is not capable of inheriting greatness necessarily and not spoiling it. And I do worry a little bit about that, right? Like if we don't go through the hard work of becoming, are we capable of like the end, like what that power represents down the road? But perhaps if we have something holding our hands, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I don't know. It's interesting. I also think people will overestimate their own intelligence going up and saying, well, it makes me smarter, but like, I think it makes the average person dumber. And I think the reality is it's probably becoming a crutch for most of us, but that might also be teaching us. It might be training us in certain ways that are productive and valuable.
Great.
How do I be on the smarter side? Tell me, dude, John just referenced do the hard work. What's the hard work so I can be on the smarter side? I want to be smarter next episode than dumber next episode.
I'm curious your thoughts. You had mentioned like doing your own writing. That's probably part of it. I would say, speaking personally, I know I probably should use AI more in writing product specs, but I found that I can't do it and like the end result. And so I always have to start writing it first, and maybe that's, I only like my own ideas. And so I have to start with my own ideas and then let AI enhance.
I'm gonna go ask Claude what the hard work is I should do, and then I'll get back to you.
I mean, the real risk here, in my opinion, is our kids, right? Like I have 4 kids. I don't know how a teenager right now decides to write an essay. There's just no way. Like that sucked. When you're 13 years old, you barely know how to write a coherent sentence, and you have this like perfect technology that will do it for you. There's just no way, right? Why would you? You're never going to need to do it again. And so I think that's for people that haven't developed some of these like foundational skills, that's probably going to be harder. And I think it's why like you get all these AI tutor companies that are like, look at it. It's not going to tell you the answer. It's going to teach you how to think. It's like, you want to know what users do when they see that? They say, I'm going to this other tool that will tell me the answer, because why would I deal with this? It's so annoying. I can go to ChatGPT and it'll tell me the answer. I'm not going to go to this Conmigo that's like going to help me work through it myself. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think you gotta, like, humans are default lazy. And I think that's real. And I think you can try to fight that, but I think it might also be a little bit of like, well, what are the new skills we need to teach? Like, instead of trying to teach kids the old way with the new technology, like maybe it's more about like rewriting what are the actual important skills with AI as the foundation, and they actually don't need to know how to write. They need to know how to like interpret and make decisions, and like you focus more on judgment or philosophy. I don't know. But I do worry that like learning how to write an essay on Huckleberry Finn, like it's just never going to be, it wasn't never important, maybe a little bit in terms of learning how to write coherent sentences, and that needed, that mattering when I write a professional email, but it certainly doesn't matter now. And like, are we really better off trying to teach kids how to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
We're at time. We can't keep digging in. But
thank you guys for joining. As a reminder, we do this live on Leland every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Would love to have you listen in live. Thanks for all of you guys who dropped in comments in the chat. It's fun to hear your comments as we go. And looking forward to next week. If you have other ideas or things you want us to talk about, shoot them in to the chat or to our team. And excited to keep doing this. Thanks, Mike, Jake. You guys are awesome.
See y'all next week. I'll be smarter.